picture.
How can we slow down rampant robber baron turbocharged capitalism as it raged its way across nature with a shot in the neck?
Run!
Is it enough to calm things down as we destroy our planet, tumbling across every obstacle we create ourselves?
3 darts is too much!
Every trap of our own creation. And when is enough enough? Is it possible to degrowth our way back to a more sensible type of thinking, a way of processing our own innate insanity? We need pioneers, crossing new thresholds of the frontiers we edge towards. When is enough enough? We need people thinking different thoughts about our economy, about our lives and who we are. We need people like Thomas Røkås. There are no borders between us, only frontiers to explore, no hinterlands to conquer. Oceans are but a distant shore. Outstriders leap from frame, gutting pain with every loss. No trenches dug divide us, only thresholds yet to cross. Welcome one and all to Outstriders Podcast, Autodidact University ADHD Studies course. We're here today to discuss a very interesting phenomenon known as degrowth, which is not, as I first imagined, diving into a cold swimming pool and coming out with shrinkage, but how to combat indeed the raging hard-on erection of turbo-capitalism in these days of finite resources where we're plundering the planets, pillaging the oceans, and I was going to say graping the atmos. So we don't want to bring the atmos down here straight away, do we, Sebastian?
No, we don't.
You're all good, mate? I see you've got a really flowery,
yes,
sustainable... Yeah. So very, very summery.
It's a cactus, you know?
Oh, is it a cactus?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You might feel a prick, yeah. So with us today, we're very happy to have with us an expert in his field, if I may grace you with that annotation, Mr. Thomas Røkås. That was pronounced right, I hope?
Yes.
Yeah, in my awful Norwegian. You are a part, one could say, of the degrowth movement. And it was in my early 40s when I discovered that not all growth was sustainable. My hair started falling out. And you've also, you have a background in environmental studies, focused on the economic aspects of how we can redistribute, I guess, evaluate and recharge almost our capitalist robber baron world. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, you might say, but when you bring in capitalism, there's some divisive discussions within and across.
Oh God, yeah, I know. So, yeah.
Degrowth, post-growth. We might come into that, but I've been studying the economics of another type of economics that respects ecological limits and social distribution of social provisioning that sort of facilitates for good lives for all, not just in Norway but everywhere. And the degrowth critique is that capitalism is not capable of doing that. We need another type of system, and might come into more in detail on what that can look
Yeah.
like. But
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got a few insidious questions on that topic.
These are questions of definition. So it's always, even if you write a thesis or just a paper about any topic, you go through definitions first, and then you develop your definition so everybody understands like what you mean by certain words. So
Yeah.
and the East-West conversation. Actually, now I'm thinking the East and West fails again and again talk to each other. So I'm the representative right now of the East.
You don't
and
say.
I'm willing to engage in meaningful conversation.
Yeah, well, we'll try our best to talk down to you and treat you with utter contempt, anything you say, of course, but without implying that your own views and that will not perhaps strengthen the topic of discussion.
Yeah, and mutual understanding.
And mute that as well, yeah.
very good.
And so, Thomas, how did you get into this? What made you decide to... Because it's quite, you really have to go into the realistic view of how this distortion of wealth distribution really affects us. And it's, like I said, turbocharged earlier, it's getting worse and worse. The wealth accumulation in the hands of the few and the mass suffering of... not just Homo sapiens. I self-identify as Neanderthal, as you know, so I pin all the blame on my people's extinction on Homo sapiens. But even we, back in the day, you know, we weren't always as sustainable as we could have been. And the hunter-gatherer societies, of course, and things are so much more complex now. So what made you sort of decide to get into this?
Yeah, I've sort of made a like paradigm shift within my own sort of understanding of the world and how we treat it. And we talked a little bit before the coming on here that I have some experience living abroad in Brazil and Guatemala, and I lived quite, let's say, primitively with people, and I've seen how they live off quite little and still are very happy. I'm not going to romanticize sort of some communities that live on very little, because there are obviously problems, but I've been exposed to these types of livings that are completely different from what we have here in Norway and rich countries that have so much and still crave for more, and we might not seem to be happier even though we get more, we accumulate more, bigger houses, bigger cars, and so on. And there's a whole nother sort of level or an approach to life in these other areas in the world, and that sort of started before I went on these trips. I was within the sort of Western, let's say, bubble of understanding how our society affects and not affects the world and so on. But after these travels, I started to get engaged with sustainability and more critiques of system critiques and so on, and started on my master's on NMBU. It's the Norwegian University of Life Science at Ås, close to Oslo. And they have a faculty there that's called NORAGRIC. It's Development and Environmental Studies. And they have a lot of good scholars that highlight and a lot of good critiques, theoretical, conceptual critiques that I got really much engaged in and inspired by. And I've been interested and motivated by this ever since. I wrote my thesis on a framework that they call donut economics, which is sort of a new idea wrapped in old theories and concepts. And I've tried to promote this concept and others that go sort of beyond the development paradigm that we live in now, and create and engage for new alternative ways that do not put economic growth and in the center, which the current system do. So yeah, that's where I find my inspiration. But it's quite tough sometimes when you see how the current system behaves, and how we behave in it and how to between each other as Homo sapiens, but also towards other species. So yeah.
There is the fact that 96% of mammals. This was a report done in November 2024. 96% of mammals are domesticated now. So there's only me and a few other percentage that are still wild, and so the biodiversity is a kind of. It's kind of a horrific consequence whenever you get a bunch of you humans building up a civilization. But since the start of widespread human civilizations, I think the numbers, about half the plants have gone, and was about 70%, I believe, of mammal species diversification. So there is the... one thing that's very close to my heart as well, here at Outstriders, we're all animal lovers, consensual, and the fact that as a militant vegetarian, vegan empire, yes we cannibal, when we take over, we're gonna close down all the meat packing plants and up against the wall. Vive la révolution.
Oh.
There will be a radical shift because so much of the waste and pollution it's inherent in the agrarian industrial complex, as I call it. There's a lot of shit there, apparently. And
So before we come to conclusions, let's dwell into the definitions first.
Oh, we're still on the definitions.
I don't understand.
Go on then.
You mentioned a few concepts, right? Like you've been introduced to in this University of Environmental Studies and
University of Life Science, but it's the Masters of International Environmental Studies.
Okay, So could you give us a short, simple overview of these concepts you've been introduced to?
Yeah.
In opposition to, maybe later as a second part, in opposition to the traditional understanding of economics.
Yeah. I guess I can start where I sort of work now or with now some of it. I work with different types of thematics with some different hats, and I come into this interview with all and none. So just to say that I'm here as a free spirit and I talks from a little bit different
we're all mad hatters here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But I'm now chairing an organization that's called Rethinking Economics Norway. It's an international movement. I think we should start there and then sort of lift some of the concepts that this organization also highlights. But Rethinking Economics, it's spurred out of the financial crisis in 2007-2008. Economic students at economic faculties all over the world, just looking at this crisis and saying, wow, what we learn? We don't learn about this. We don't learn about financial crisis. We don't learn about so many things, about the climate, about social inequalities, all of these fundamental sort of challenges that we face. We are not teaching it at our economic faculties. So these students sort of roared up and said, we need more plural, interdisciplinary theories, concepts at our faculties. We need to that our teaching needs to be more practical oriented, and so on. And that has been a demand ever since. All over the world, this movement is growing. So basically, what this movement wants to do is to have a reform of the economic education so that you include other aspects. I will come back to some of them.
You've received funding, I believe, to go through the Norwegian economic studies and that. So congratulations.
Thank you. That's quite exciting. We received quite a large grant to evaluate all economic education in Norway to see how much off they are for a sort of ideal rethinking economics curriculum would look like, which would that type of curriculum would ideally include analysis of the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, the pollution crisis, the increase in wealth, increase in debt, mechanisms of sort of financial crisis and how to avoid it, and so on, etc.
So it's a like multivariable analysis of the situation, not only the dissection from economical point of view.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and that's sort of the main critique of the field economics is that it's based on a very few assumptions about human and about our environment, and it excludes so many things. It assumes that we are individual machines thinking very rationally, thinking always to profit from other people. It's set up in a way that others, they criticize it for not being real.
Yeah.
We have other skills, and we have other worries, and we care about each other in a way that is not encapsulated in the curriculum and the models in current economic curriculum. So we criticize that the type of the economic education that is being taught now at universities all over the world are from one school only. It's a neoclassical economics that has sort of been, it has been crystallized the last 50 years especially, and it dominates now in faculties. And what we also criticize is that the sort of economic rhetorics and economic knowledge has got a lot of power over politics, right? So
very much so, yeah.
So it's politicians listen very much to economics and the economic arguments, and they do the arguments themselves, maybe not always knowing the total sort of consequences of them. I would say. So what we say is that these arguments are flawed, many of them. We need to make stronger ones that are based on whole other aspects. So that's sort of one. The other sort of major goal of Rethinking Economics is to democratize these rhetorics. So we want to make this very technical economic language, make it to normal Norwegian or normal English, or a language that everyone can understand. Because all economic issues are issues that everyone should care about, right?
Yes.
It might not seem like it when you have discussions on like monetary and fiscal policies. It sounds very boring.
Hedge funds need to be trimmed. All that,
all these concepts and words. They
it's
seem
it's the gobbledygook of the financial experts, the Gork box, or things like that you see. It is often very difficult to follow.
Yeah, very much so. Even for politicians, they say it themselves.
Yeah, I would say especially for a few.
But the impact of these decisions and this discourse is massive on society and the real economy. So this is a huge democratic problem that the majority of people do not understand and take part in this discussion in the public discourse. So Rethinking Economics also want to democratize this jargon, this rhetorics, and to get more to participate. So that's sort of the Rethinking Economics in a nutshell. I would also want to elaborate a little bit on a couple of concepts or theoretical frameworks that Rethinking sort of deals with. One is ecological economics. It's sort of a discipline, a theoretical discipline within economics, you can say. And then you have also degrowth, which is more of you can say it's becoming a discipline in itself as well, but it builds on a lot of the insights from ecological economics. And then you have a broader, let's say, a societal movement of post-growth. But what ecological economics challenge the current dominant
dogma.
Dogma, you can say, is that the economy as we know it is a subsystem of our biosphere, of nature. So that means that in our economy we can grow or shrink, we can, depending on what we need to produce and so on. But our biosphere we cannot grow. It's a finite system, right? So we live within a finite planet. Energy comes in, energy goes out, but nothing, and it can, like natural resources can change forms and change energy, but it cannot grow.
Well, it doesn't look like we're going to build the space elevator anytime soon either. So,
no, and that project, we can come back to that, but that's... But so what ecological economics says is that on a finite planet, we cannot have infinite growth. It seems quite logic.
It does, yeah.
So with that insights, and I think that's also why this sort of discipline is gaining traction today as well, is that since pre-industrialization and so on, also since like pre-1950, we have gone from having let's say an empty world where our economy has been small enough to take care of nature. We have only taken so much woods and fish and used water as to an extent that it still regenerates naturally. And so we don't, we're respecting nature's limits, so to say. We've gone from that to be many more people in the world that are much more demanding, affluent, so they use much more
resources.
Among other things, because of the technological revolution that we've seen as well. Technology can be very it can be to make things more efficient, but it can also facilitate for more production. We can come into that paradox later, but what we have seen is we have gone from this empty world to a full world, where now we are too many people using too much stuff, and to a degree that our natural systems are not able to regenerate themselves. So we're overshooting the limits of our planet, of our waters, our forests, our seasons of
carbon-based, the fossil fuels. I mean, they are finite.
Yes.
You know, so all our plastics.
Exactly. So and also everything else are finite. Our forests and these are finite resources, but they regenerate in different cycles that are, some are shorter, and obviously fossil fuels are much slower to regenerate. And the way we use resources now that used, I'm not a geologist, but they've used so many years to become a fossil
to form,
and now we're just spurring it out in the air in a rate that is just extremely unsustainable, and that's why we have this climate crisis. So basically what ecological economics says, that we have some limits that we need to and should respect in order to sustain nature's regenerative capacities. Again, to sustain us as a civilization, our economy.
So it's nothing revolutionary, you know. It's not tear down the system.
No.
But of course, sort of reevaluating and focusing, then I guess lobbying for the political class to focus, to have these things in mind, by also causing the education of those bastards on Wall Street, kind of, the people taking care of our oil fund, you know, just to make sure that they have a more holistic view.
Make sure you're not shooting into your own.
You're not a wolf of Wall Street now, DiCaprio. Come on, get real.
No, but that's exactly what Rethinking Economics advocate for. They want a complete reform of the educational system, so that the people that are educated and are placed, often it's people that study economics that are placed in high, key positions in departments and politicians, that they have a much broader understanding, and they have this fundamental understanding of how economics work. That would be the ideal, but it's quite a long way to go, I would say.
So I guess you could say that the Gordon Gekko greed is good kind of philosophy is slightly
it's accepted
fading now. Well, that's the mainstream, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
and that's because of the theoretical frameworks that we're being taught.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to. Tweaking it is one thing, reevaluating it is one thing, but the sort of a Marxist state-run economics, they certainly don't work either if they've ever been practiced in a practical way. And so also the idea that the free market and everything, it has brought millions of people out of poverty and that kind of thing. It's given us Pornhub, given us the internet. So there's been a lot of useful technological advances that have been done, at least on the surface level.
Also on the material level, obviously. Capitalism has been extremely sort of efficient in producing stuff.
Providing credit so that you can generate...
Some of these mechanisms are, you can say, useful.
Good lives for people as well, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
But that's also why these, I think, movements are popping up now, that it is potentially, let's say, good to a certain degree and to some stuff. And some stuff it's not good at.
Yeah.
And to recognize that is also not within the sort of mainstream understanding.
No.
But I think what you said, sort of, this dual understanding of sort of, you have free market in the West and a state-owned project in the East. I think this is sort of a misrepresentative of the so diversity of different systems that we have had and that we still have and that we still can produce. So we also talked about communism a little bit in the break before here. And I would say Marx and other communist idea of a society is not so distant from what we have in Nordic countries, you can say. Except our individual...
Except the ongoing revolution.
That may be... But the whole idea of commons, of commoning, of collective ownership, of collective provisioning is key in a communist project, communist... I don't want to romanticize communism, but I think we can learn from many different systems.
Exactly.
We can learn and use free market where it is useful, and we can learn from Karl Marx and other Marxist theories and traditions where that is useful.
It was a clear break with the past, manifesto and that, and the thinking behind it was part of a gradual development of free thinkers they were Adam Locke and everything, the Keynesian models of stuff, and so it was an answer to that, but it was still authoritarian as such, but it was safeguarding, because at that time you had the robber barons and everything who were really being turbocharged.
It needs to fit the times,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
You are living in certain environment, and there are certain things you cannot change at the time. So you got king and the whole structure, military and political structure, and you are, as an individual at the time, you cannot do anything about it. So if you focus like, we can develop something here within the economics, useful. And we are now, like, if you think about it as a building, like the foundation being laid, we saw that the applied Marxist, Leninist, Stalinist way is wrong foundation. So, on the other hand, John Locke, Smith, and other Western thinkers got it right, but it doesn't mean they could see like 300 years or 500 years in the future. So it needs to be rethinked all the time.
Rethought out, doesn't it? Yeah.
And this is exactly all of the thinkers that you said now. They have a lot of diverse thinking and ideas.
And to give credit to Marx, he got the capital equation pretty much right. So when it comes to economics, like, that's why he's so influential even now, because he's got many things right.
For sure. He has some societal analysis that are still extremely relevant.
Spot on,
and they're still being sort of reanalyzed. And I want to come back to sort of when we talk about communism and degrowth, because there's an exciting analysis going on, or it's a thinker in Japan that has wrote about degrowth communism. I don't know. I haven't sort of defined degrowth yet. I guess have I?
Let's go.
Oh, yeah, I
Are we
tried
still
at
on
the
the
beginning, but
definitions? Okay.
yeah, that was crap.
Yeah, I want the end of that end on another metaphor on how a solution can
Go
be.
for
But
it.
let's go. Let's do that in the end.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, what degrowth is not is jumping into a cold water and shrink. Meaning, degrowth is not a measure, a sort of a decline within the current system. It's not a degrowing GDP. That's stagnation. That's something nobody wants. What degrowth says is we need to transform the way we produce, the way we relate, the way we provision to a total different system. So we want. Degrowth says that we are obviously overshooting limits. Ecologically, we are using way too much resources. So we need to democratically plan our way from overconsumption down to a level of consumption that respects planetary boundaries, and to redistribute wealth so that every person has a good life. That's a massive project.
Yeah.
And they say that it cannot be done within the current system because the way capitalism demands continued accumulation and the way that accumulation and that growth is linked to the use of natural resources. That's an insight from ecological economics. This system is not possible. So we need to a totally new system and the ways that we produce these good lives. So that's sort of also degrowth in a nutshell. So going back to communism then, because I think the sort of communist idea, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a communist scholar, obviously. But
neither are we. But, yeah.
But the idea of sort of socialism and it was that we sort of need to have a little bit of capitalism. We need to have quite industrialization.
Yeah.
In order to facilitate for this social project or socialist project. What this thinker in Japan now is saying is that reading some of Marx's latest work that was not published and was not emphasized, he said that Karl Marx actually said that he was challenging that idea and say that you might not need to industrialize.
Right.
He was inspired by some Russian Khmers. I think there's some local communities in both Russian and other places. He saw that these communities are operating quite well. They're provisioning everything they need without sort of this very damaging industrialization. And he said that we might not need this after all. We might just need to, within the sort of degrowth spirit, organize around different ways of provisioning that does not include industrialization.
Right. I imagine if China could have jumped over a great leap over the industrialization, I mean, their country would, of course, be a lot less ravaged because the sustainability of industrialization as well, that does take a toll on your resources for your actual country and surroundings, the water table and everything. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
I need to ask for feedback a little bit because I might be understanding the capitalism as is perceived here. So, and this is again about definitions. So, how I see the idea of capitalism is to have means to produce. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go all the way to the extreme point when you are destroying your surroundings, which I see that the criticism of capitalism, it is implied in that criticism. So I'm asking for the clarification if it is truly in ideas of these capitalist thinkers, or it's more of an criticism of the practice. In a similar way, the Marx was he was working with ideas, not with applying them, and Lenin, Stalin, and others were just applying them. And so you can get inspiration from Marx, but you shouldn't be inspired by Lenin
Stalin or
Stalin, who just killed like 150 million people, which is also not taught properly in schools.
Yeah, now there's a lot of things there, but you can.
So the point was the capitalism. The definition, if the criticism implied when the capitalism goes too far and start destroying the idea of growth, starts destroying environment and exploiting people, if it's truly in the core of capitalist idea.
It's sort of unavoidable, it's inevitable that pure capitalism will lead to these things. That's the critique.
That's my question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think capitalism, I mean, the people that promote capitalism does not promote exploitation, destruction of natural habitat. I mean, that's not, it's not how they, it's not part of the definition, obviously, but it's a consequence of it. That's sort of the insights you have from these more heterodox economic theories, that a model, a macro model that is based on continuous accumulation, that sort of investments, the profit from investments needs to be invested in other projects, in other goals, that they need to grow. That cycle of growthism. I mean, if you look at it as in a narrow sense, it might make sense. I mean, at least in societies that are, let's say, deprived. You need rapid production to produce the things that you need, like healthcare, education, and so forth. Like this might be a very good sort of engine to facilitate for it. The problem is, and that's sort of the degrowth critique, is that this sort of growth imperative leads to the massive destruction of our natural habitat, and naturally leads to inequalities.
So if I jump in it, so if we applied, so Norway, for example, might be in this developmental stage when it is right to think about degrowth, but maybe, for example, Slovakia or even less developed countries, it might not be the right thing to do at the stage they're in.
For sure, and that's also, it's often misconceived, or it's not conceived properly by degrowth critiques. Degrowth essentially, it's obviously it's starting up in rich world or in rich countries that are overshooting ecological boundaries. But essential to their theory or their project is that they're equal or a fair redistribution of global resources. And in that paradigm or narrative, they say that obviously we rich people in the rich world are overusing. People in other places in the world does not have enough. They do not have either the possibilities of using their own resources because of these global structures of capitalism. I would say maybe come back to this, but so what Degrowth says that we need to the potential of growth in the north, we need to leave that to places that needs it. We do not need it. So that's sort of essential. And then you have many degrowth scholars and ecological economists that sort of looks at how money and resources flow in this economy in order to sort of achieve this. And then a lot of people talk about what they call unequal, ecologically unequal exchange, an unfair distribution of goods and services where they say that we're still living in a very much a colonial and imperialist world where Europeans and Northern Americans are buying extremely cheap
raw materials, that,
labor from especially the African continent, but also other places in many Asian countries. We've done it for decades. South America, obviously, and then that we are using these embedded labor and cheap materials to create a lot of wealth and gain on it. So it's an unequal relationship there that needs to be restored, and some go also further and say it needs to be recompensated.
So then it's perhaps easier to rake in profits by having this unequal society. So I think it's funny, that the people most clamoring for profits at all price are called shareholders, but they don't share very much, do they? And so profits at any price, it will lead to exploitation of as many people as you can, just to get that profit margin for the shareholders. So that the actual company-based, is it necessary then to alter the power of shareholder interests, or is it more about educating shareholders to be more act with a bigger conscience, like they're trying to do with the Norwegian oil fund? There's an ethical element to stuff, and I know progressive values. Woke has killed all my heroes and everything. It's made everything crap now and entertainment. But having progressive values towards the equitable distribution of wealth and resources will the shareholders? How do you?
Yeah, no, and this is very fascinating. I think I talked about there's a different spectrum of people that are quite progressive critiques of capitalist and more sort of post-growth scholars that, and I think this is a good sort of time to introduce this. What degrowth, or at least capitalist critiques, say that inherently shareholders that will be more conscious or think more about the environment or equity, that business will go bankrupt. It will not work in this capitalist system because you are dependent on these type of profits.
Get woke, go broke, but that's a different thing. Yeah. But yes, I've heard that argument many places.
So this is part of sort of the growth imperative, and how the shareholder or aksjeselskap in Norwegian, it's
owner, basically owner.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if one individual or multiple, but it's the owner.
So that institution is not compatible with this sort of an economic system that provides for all within the planetary boundaries. So we need a lot of there's a whole field about sort of alternative company ownership models that are where you're not dependent on shareholders, but instead of there's an elite that already is quite rich, sitting and controlling what you should sell and not, and control, steering the company towards more profits. You have the workers themselves owning it, or you have local communities owning it, cooperatives, other models where the people that are engaged in the economic activities will also gain sort of more on. Let's say you have a local company in a local community. If you are doing something polluting the local river, you will yourself be affected by it. Exactly. So most likely you will not do it. Shareholders will not take that into consideration. They will pollute that river because it will lead to profit. So, so these alternative company models are a big thing within both ecological economics and post-growth thinking. So that's sort of, many degrowthers, or I'd say degrowth, and is critical towards they don't think shareholders will or if they grow conscience, even though they do, the system don't allow them to.
No, exactly,
And then you have sort of other post-growth thinkers and different types of sort of economic different economic tractions or ideas, where some don't focus or critique capitalism or growth specifically, but they say that what we need is to focus on another goal. Because now, even though if it's implicit or explicit, everything is about growth. Growth in GDP for nations, growth in profits for businesses. If we do not have growth in our economy for 2 or 3 consecutive quarters, we're in stagnation.
Exactly,
This is a big thing, and we're going to do different policies to make it come back to growth. So this is absurd in an economy where we have more than enough. So post-growthers say that we need other measures to other indicators to measure well-being, to measure sustainability, and we need to make them count, not just as a nice reporting thing, but we need to put them at the center. So human well-being and the ecological sustainability should be the goal of our society, and then we should use our economy, finance, money, and so forth to achieve it. So they put it all.
It's topsy-turvy, isn't it? So it's the cart before the horse kind of thing.
Exactly. And then some post-growthers, as I said, are not explicit on a critique of capitalism. They say we might. I'm not even sure how, but adjust or recreate the capital. You talk about sort of human capital, nature capital, other types of capital, and try to adjust the system.
The sheeple.
And I'm not going. I'm not sure. I think what they also want to try to do, this post-growth movement, is to, and there's also called something like well-being economics and well-being
With
economy.
the well-being index as well you have, don't you?
And they want to they want this new economic thinking to sort of go and spread more widely, more mainstream. The degrowth narrative is not very sexy, as you might. I think it is personally when you learn a little bit about it, because it's so logical and it's so. But in the mainstream
what
sort of narrative,
degrow can grow.
So it's come out as a bit of on a bad foot, let's say, in the mainstream understanding. So
the branding was not done right.
We're all going to be hobbits now, sort of.
So I see that the well-being economy and post-growth economy are trying to sort of come into the corridors.
We should rebrand it to the well-being. Well-being economy, right? So it implies like, okay, what's at the center of interest?
And this is, I'm not going to sort of take sides and pick sides, but there's a huge debate within this sort of spectrum from, let's say, light post-growthers to progressive degrowthers. And some even say that we need to divide them because the one might sort of dilute the idea of the other. Post-growth being the first.
They are mutually exclusive.
So compartmentalize the actual issues involved.
But this is a whole other sort of debate. I think what is important now and for our time, because we are in quite severe crisis. If you look at sort of the climate, the nature, and the inequality, the numbers, the amount of wealth you have on just a
fewer and fewer people,
are so big, and to the degree
it's obscene.
And to the degree that all of these sort of movements agree that the current system, we need system change. Obviously, if it's capitalism, a drastic, like, let's have a chat about that. But a system change is needed. So to have this, the idea of new economic thinking, radically changing how the theoretical frameworks of how we understand our economy, as I said, embedded in society and in the biosphere. We need that understanding to go mainstream. So there's also a lot of debate of like strategy, degrowth and strategy. How do we communicate? How do we?
And I suppose for each industry, I mean, some industries are very much research-based, like the pharmaceutical industry, and but of course, with the less biodiversity, I mean, it's the cure for it's probably the cure for everything there. I was going to say the cure for bipolar disorder, ADHD, and PTSD all rolled into one.
How does the well-being economics incorporate, or how does this economical point of view deal with geopolitics, with different regimes? Let's mention China, Iran, Brazil, South Africa, African countries. Those are like very different situations in opposition.
Yeah.
Even the Eastern or Central Eastern Europe versus US and the Western Europe.
Well, I think where a lot of these movements have more to improve is how to engage more in that sort of contemporary geopolitical conversations.
Chaos.
Chaos, let's say.
That's the right word.
Because it's very easy to use the current sort of narratives. We need militarization because of a threat from the East, or we need growth, or we need this and that are within the sort of narrow understanding and the current economic system and political sort of solutions at hand. So to develop that counter arguments and alternative projects that also are, let's say, geopolitical relevant, there's a lot to go there. And I think, but yeah, first we sort of need to I say we as a representative of alternative economic thinking, become more mainstream in order we can
gain influence.
And build these sort of counter arguments. We have, I think, we have a good sort of foundation of what are the alternatives. But how is that transition? How do you treat the current sort of wars? How do you treat
mafia states as well.
One
of the most depressing ecological disaster books I've read was it's one about the Undergrowth, the one from Naples. They made a series out of it. You know the one I'm talking about? Yeah, the South Italian mafia. And the last, I think the last chapter, but it was a recurring theme throughout the book. It was the ecological disaster that was being inflicted on beautiful parts of southern Italy, where they were just dumping all toxic chemicals and everything, and people were really suffering in these beautiful landscapes that bucolic pastoral existence for centuries. They're dead. They're wastelands now, and that is happening with the deforestation in many parts of South America. The soil erosion in Nepal, for example, is appalling, and so then the microplastics is another thing, and but going back to the challenges that each type of industry has, like with the big pharma and the profit. I mean, I personally think that privatizing healthcare. I mean, you could have some alternatives. I mean, bit of acupuncture, a bit of crystal, whatever. For people who want to have the alternatives, sure, that shouldn't be too draconian. But you have to be careful about the exploitation of people and that. But big pharma, the money they're raking in, they're making money from the drug, the opioid catastrophe, and the advent of drugs, pirated drugs and everything. It's pretty unsafe, and so the profit motive is so strong to have a crap system as well, and that's kind of worrying. That this mankind's I'm looking at all you Homo sapiens. No, Neanderthals weren't too bright either. We made our mistakes, but the inherent stupidity of humankind. With the greed, there's three things that control civilization, human civilization. It's greed, fear, and laziness. And we're going to have to break a cycle, because the Anunnaki, not the Anunnaki, but these in the southern states, New Mexico area, and that they went extinct. That was the biggest builders in America, and you've had the Khmer civilizations that suddenly gone, and that was because they destroyed their own environment. And so you've had pre-industrial civilizations fucking up their own, shitting in their own bed kind of thing.
You have some.
So,
I start with the assumption that we are greedy, lazy, and so forth. These might not be correct. But our institutions and our sort of our way of relating in terms of how we do economics, how do we are based on this assumption as well. So the point is, and this is a critique and alternative visions from an heterodox economic discipline called institutional economics. It says that instead of assuming that we are selfish, rational, profit-making, greedy, we make systems that support this. So
exactly. It's like a negative reinforcement, isn't it?
Markets are feeding these feelings in us, right?
Yes.
And markets have, as you say, they've become everywhere.
Yeah.
They're eroding public space, and in public space we have a different logic that are promoting other types of skills and other types of. So we are not just greed, or some everyone might have some greediness in them and so on, but we also have a lot of cooperation. We have a lot of empathy. We have a lot of other positive things that we could rather build institutions on that facilitates for our economy as well. So instead of having shareholders and profit-making businesses, we can have cooperatives, other types of businesses, and public institutions that are breeding other types of skills, other types of
human, human beings.
Yeah, the day poetry becomes legal tender, I'll be a billionaire, mate. It's reevaluating the value of things, isn't it? Yeah,
and. Exactly.
Yeah, but it's also a very logical and down to earth.
But the problem is that these logics or these frameworks and the way we have created these current systems is built, as I said, on these assumptions, and it's been playing out and enforced since especially 70s, 80s, and now we take them a lot for granted, and we sort of started to adapt it in our individual lives as well. We're starting to say, how much can I gain on this, and how can I? So we have been individualized a lot through this type of systems, and I think it's time to sort of. It takes time to change that, but it's I think it's necessary.
I got 2 points here. One is let me first that I'm gonna get back to is the. Maybe Christian religion ideas, fundamental ideas, which are like hundreds of years put into minds of people, and rejection of or seeing human beings as evil beings.
Original sin
idea. Now I forgot the second one. Can you remind me a little bit what you were saying?
About the I don't know what it is.
Is that the happiness index?
No. Just now you were saying.
Yeah, how we need to re-evaluate. Like, so what are we humans?
Yeah,
we are a little bit
value.
greedy. We are a little bit. We have different roles. So as a person at the market, obviously I want to have the best price.
I got it now. The second idea is about human beings as societal creatures and like species that create hierarchies. So and there is that it's kind of a game, right? Like for example, in sexual selection, like to get the best woman, right, you need to be attractive to her, and as a species, like, this is very, very simplified and general. Okay, so females mostly go for the social improvement, and they want to see the male, as if we apply it to monkeys and stuff like that, right? So they want to pick somebody from the top of the hierarchy.
The chimp with the most bananas.
yes, exactly. So this needs to be, in my opinion, incorporated, because if you are thinking only in that ideal world, like, oh, we all can be equal and we all can like accept one another, I think it's true on that lowest level of society. Like, I do agree, like, we should take care of the needy, period. But when it comes to, then there are other needs, like people have skills and these talents,
yeah.
Like somebody is really good leader, right? He's, then it's becoming like the competition part. Like, it still needs to be.
So the humankind's competitiveness.
Yeah,
the human beings probably need to have space to be competitive.
And they
also
have it.
Within the.
Today they have the landscape is very much laid out for those people, those monkeys with a lot of bananas. And the problem now is that they are taking bananas from people that needed to survive. So the wealth of people like Musk and so on are eroding the whole sort of societal fabrics of different types of society, and especially globally. But I think you need a balance, and there's always a balance, because human societies, you have always had a type of sort of
meritocracy.
Yes, and that I think that exists within groups to a certain degree, but
which
always,
is natural.
But we always also are social. We always take care of our group. That's biologically ingrained in us. So there's always a balance there. And now I think we are emphasizing,
to be a little bit of devil advocate. You mentioned Musk, and so he created a lot of. I know it is within the growth capitalistic idea, but that's the game. At this point, so if he haven't create this new company and a lot of opportunities to a lot of people, like hierarchically underneath him, so somebody could call him the devil because he's pushing this system, or he could be a saint, like, oh, he helped so many people,
given employment and
so there are always these
two sides
of the coin,
obviously. But then I think from the sort of the critical side, degrowth and ecological economists, they would say that, or especially degrowth, they say that, okay, but what is he producing? Well, how is he contributing to society? If he was, let's say, solving world hunger and building schools and building and producing that types of employment, let's say, okay. But now he's making luxury UVs, electric cars for people that are extremely rich. He's exploiting the environment in different places, and also people. Obviously, you see in the protests and the demonstrations in Sweden and so on. And he's gaining extreme wealth while doing it. So what Degrowth says that we might not need that type of sort of, let's say, innovation and that type of employment and so forth. We need rather collective interests to define how should we rather use that natural resources, which type of employment should we produce, and that should rather be a collective sort of job instead of allowing on the free market space and allowing innovation, so that you end up in producing let's say unnecessary goods in a sense.
Yeah,
this is not just must. This is you see.
Yeah, it's just one example.
Bezos and that as well, of course. And it's like the monkey with the most bananas gets other people to fight wars, take over, get hold of a banana monopoly, and instead of sharing them out to people who need them, he's opening them all, and he's eating the tops of it and throwing it around and wasted it, and it's that's a hazard.
And he has so many bananas in the bank.
They're all going rotten.
And they go rotten.
Yeah,
you can say that.
But he's still sitting on his hoard.
Okay. Let's dwell a little bit more deeper. So he's got this incredible wealth, but he's not using that wealth only for himself, right? Like there is the whole structure underneath. If he just apply it to company. So there is a whole structure underneath, and each of this person who is getting the money from that, it's not actually from him, right? It is from that system. So I just would like to point the direction of the criticism not to a person, but
to the system that allows
to what actually might be wrong. And all of these people underneath him, they now have means to support needy, right? Because I don't think he is against helping the poor.
You think when he retires he'll do a Bill Gates?
Probably,
the philanthropist. That's always been an aspect of previous robber baron kind of structures, and that they did have philanthropy. They were helping the needy, at least in their surroundings.
But just to be clear,
not necessarily.
I'm not criticizing Musk, and I'm criticizing these rich people. They've just played the system we have very good. The problem is the system, for me, obviously. Because you can say that he's producing, let's say, wealth underneath as well, or he's producing employment, people get income, people get some cars. The problem is the surplus that he's generating. He's extracting a lot of wealth. Right? And that sort of extractivism, this is sort of the idea of the current system, the capitalism and so forth.
He's also, like, just to put it there, like, and people can be skeptical or whatever. I'm not picking sides here, but he's put it into vision. So he's basically within this. If I just structurize it within the system, I'm gonna play this system because that's what it is, and I have a plan to make human beings multi-planetary species, and in the end, it's a
scam.
All of us.
No, it's a scam. It's not a vision, it's delirium. If you look closely at all his projects, they're pipe dreams, they're fronts, veneers for extracting investor money that he can rip off in some way or another. None of his visions have come anywhere close to being employed for humanity's benefit. So I look upon him as a scam artist, a con man, and an entrepreneur, sure, but he hasn't designed the technological breakthroughs of stuff and that. It's of course you need a Bill Gates for each got Steve Jobs for each Steve Wozniak, that was his designer, wasn't it? So you need an Edison for every Tesla.
Yeah.
Of course, you need someone who can disseminate useful technology so it can be developed. But you see too much that the corporate culture, they buy up innovative technologies and just quash it. So all the lobbies and the way the system is geared up, it's not logical or practical. It's just causing massive waste.
And I think coming back to sort of the current economic system and critiques and alternatives, the way within sort of the economic rhetorics today is that we need to facilitate for such a landscape like these for entrepreneurs and for innovators because they are able to produce wealth because wealth is measured in money and profits and it's only them, private market, that can produce wealth or verdiskapning. They are value creators, and it's because of them and their tax income from their sort of innovation that we can produce our public goods and so on. So we need these private companies' innovations in order for sort of their society to go around. This is a misconception, I think, and we talked about. I will introduce a couple of other sort of theories that some people today say that
it's all right.
Yeah. We are not. There's a new theory that's called modern monetary theory, and they are challenging this. It's related to this conception that tax is not an income. Tax is only a mechanism of redistribution. So you use taxing to redistribute wealth accordingly to how society develops. What creates innovation, what creates economic activity is public spending, or what it is today, lending, credit. So what, instead of sort of, the idea is that instead of leaving this innovation and economic activities to actors in the private sector, that does not, you cannot create money on education and hospital, at least, you can, obviously, you see the privatization, but not as a common good. So you're exploiting public goods, so to say. So instead of having this class that are exploiting, let's say common goods, we can do it ourselves. We can spend, we can create through public spending and also through public credit. The problem today is that the majority of the credit or the money that is in circulation is created by private banks. So it's about, I think in Western countries, it's 95 to 97% of the money that's created is through private loans. And those banks, they are also not investing in public services because it's not profitable, right? They 90% plus goes to housing, or that are creating insane assets. Financial capital, housing bubbles, and it creates the grounds for financial crisis, right? So the idea of sort of MMT and new thoughts of sort of recreating or restructuring monetary and financial systems is that why should money is a public good, okay? So why should the production of a public good be in the hands of private actors that are profiting on activities that are not getting society? Why should we not rather have this extremely fantastic innovation of public spending or credit creation be in public hands, and that we as a democratic society can decide we want to and we need to invest in education, we need to invest in this and that, in public goods, facilitate for public goods for everyone that does not have an interest, that are not creating more debt,
Yeah.
economic instability, and so forth.
Yeah.
So these are quite sort of, you could call them radical ideas, but they are sort of gaining traction both in the US and Europe.
Yeah.
And I think that's exciting.
Well, let's hope they gain enough traction in time to save society, or else we'll be talking about post-apocalyptic growth.
Yeah.
So from the subsistence level on up.
Yeah, they're at
But
least.
we got to mention the
Yeah.
conference as well. This is we're filming this a couple of weeks before the conference and that. So the Degrowth conference is in Oslo this year, and was about 1,200 delegates using sail power or something to get here. No private jets, DiCaprio. And at Sagene Kunstmia, our art hub, we're going to have do entertainments and everything. We're going to be streaming the conference the whole week, and it starts off at the 22nd of June? Is that right? 24th. Yeah. And there's going to be. Do you think this is? How many conferences have they had? I think this was the 12th or something.
So the conference is actually a joint conference between the International Society for Ecological Economics.
Yeah.
I think that's the 18th international conference. And then I think you have the 12th or 13th International Degrowth Conference.
Right.
So they cooperate, and that's going to be, as you say, from the 24th to the 27th of June. 1,200 people from all over the world. We're going to have the opening ceremony with the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, which is quite exciting. So I think it shows that these thematics are gaining traction. And I think it's quite exciting that we're making this social hub at Sagene Kunstmia and at House Mania. We can see this streaming. We try to facilitate so that, let's say, other target groups are being exposed. Yeah. Because I think a lot of the discussions and thematics that are going to be discussed there, on many of the topics that we discussed now, so more academically, but still it's...
You think? Don't know about that.
But I think they can also spur...
Not as many puns. But
interesting discussions among ordinary people. And I think
we are here for the ordinary people.
All you sheeple out there.
Yeah, me too.
It's a bad world. But
so if you have if you want to learn more, you can go out on the webpage to have a look at both this academic program and this social program. It's going to happen a lot that week in Oslo at different venues. A lot of different actors are involved. So you can go in on ISEE.
We can provide the links
that's nice.
below. Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll do all that. So
awesome.
And I'm checking the time out now, and it's you've got a busy schedule ahead of you. Leading up to this as well. I mean, you are a busy man, and there's a bunch of other stuff we could have discussed as well. We haven't even got into the military-industrial complex and everything about where the real waste is going. The 12th year, the Pentagon can't give in a budget, only 40% of the money accounted for, and Europe's gearing up. We're all spending the space elevator. It's never going to happen, is it? And it wouldn't be green anyway, probably. So, well, you're a constant optimist, aren't you, mate? You're one of the optimists. And you seem sort of optimistic as well, and realistic. Not that you're not realistic. So I wish your shirt was biodiverse, but made in China by little fingers probably down the mines. And I really hope that a reevaluation of economics can haul Tiny Tim out the chimney and give him a scrub and a decent opportunity in life. And so thank you for coming along.
Thank you.
We might have to continue this. Luckily, you agreed to be a guest here without seeing any of the other podcasts we've done. So we kind of cajoled you in here right now, Thomas. But it's been really interesting, and I mean, my mind's buzzing as well. So
pleasure to talk to.
It really
thank
was
you for the discussion. And I just want to say to people, like, be critical. I think that's, and I think when you hear economic jargon, don't think that you're stupid. It's technocratic.
Yeah.
Ask questions, like be critical.
Purposefully technocratic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll seek alternative heterodox insights. That's my
Yeah, that's what I tell people about my poetry. Now, it's not hard to read if you just read it. You know, so you will understand. You get the gist.
And to end on your metaphor.
Oh, go on then.
So degrowth, we don't want a degrowth or where you dive into a shrinkage after cold water, and you don't want that stereo. What did you? How did you?
Turbocharged, raging hard on capitalism. Yeah.
We want a system where you hang loose.
Yeah.
Right.
More
we
like
want
a rubber baron. It was a bit bendy.
A little bit bendy.
Yeah.
So how do we get that water just the right temperature to hang loose? I think that's
and we need your ideas to develop this, because you've seen, like, they've been thinking idealistically, but they don't have the implementation plans. So please write down in the comments all possible implementation.
Their ideas.
All areas of life. So they can get something.
Yeah, like, subscribe, and share your ideas as well. But also this podcast, and we'll read all the comments. And if there's any particularly good ones, we'll send them to you, mate. Right? Okay. So okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thomas,
the discussion.
Yes. To be continued, I guess.
Cool.
Okay. Cheers, Sebastian, mate. Thank you to everyone out there.